My name is Muhammad Radwan. I'm a lead architect and ALM consultant. Today, I will introduce a new feature in TFS 11, which is Team Web Access. Actually, Team Web Access is not a new feature, but there are a lot of improvements introduced in TFS 11 for the Team Web Access. And I believe it becomes a first-class citizen, at least for me. There is a big improvement in performance and usability to minimize the number of round trips to the server, to make rich UI experience. There are a lot of small features, but the most important new feature are backlog, board, and the change in the home page. So let's go to the demo. I will connect to the machine using Radwan. Okay, I will create a new project, team project, TFS EG. I will open the web access. So this is the home page for the default theme for our team project TFS EG. Please review the team video and post to understand what is the team feature I explain in details in this video, a previous video. Because the home page always is the summary of the whole web application or portal, so I will explain the home page at the end of this video. So this explanation can be clear after we make sense about the most components of the team web access. The first thing is to do is creating teams, team members, iteration, and area, so we can start adding our user stories or PPIs of the projects. So first I will go to the settings and start doing that. I will not work with the default so we can understand very important points. So I will remove all. Okay, I removed all. So if we go to iteration, we will find that there is only the TFS EG, and actually we can't delete this. If we go to areas, the same here, and here is the default team. So now we have three default: team, area, iteration. Now, as we can see, we must have at least one default team and one default iteration and one default area, and I can't delete this default. If I try to remove the area, for example, he will tell me that I can't remove the area because some feature like product, backlog, and task board will not work. And if I just refresh the page, we can see the auto select will bring back. Let's see it again. So let's see the home page. If we just make refresh, we can see here the workload is not working, and so is the burn down, because we didn't choose or specifying a sprint for this team. Okay, let's add some. If we go to iteration, I will select this and add release 1, sprint 1, sprint 2, sprint 3, release 2. If we go to the home page now, after I just select the sprint 1, just to make refresh, so now the workload will work and the burn down. If I select sprint 2 and sprint 3, we can see here that the workload is showing sprint 1, and if I go to work, backlog it will show the current as a sprint 1 and all the coming sprints as a future sprints. Two sections, current and the future. The current is the first sprint and all the coming sprints are future sprints. The backlog is a new feature I will introduce later in this video. Let's give sprints dates. If we go to here and set, I will set this a past sprint. And this is in the current date. And this is as a future. If we go here and let's see this, we can see here that now the sprints divided into three sections: past, current, and future. This depends on the start and the end date of the sprints itself and the current date of the server. So if we go to the home page, we can see here that it considers sprint 2, and here is the start date and end date of sprint 2. So the point here is that the home page and the backlog consider the start end date of the sprint and the current date of the server to determine these classifications. So after we understand a little bit about iteration areas and how this reflects to the backlog and home page, let's start our project by adding teams, team members, and areas. But first, I will remove the sprints from the default team. So let's go to the settings and remove them. And by starting, I will add team 1. This is the team I will work with. And team 2. This team, just for showing something, I will start adding member. Let's add Brian, Laura, save. Okay, I will add some areas too. As we can see here, there is this. I will make the payment the default area for team 1. Let's choose team 2 and make the HR for team 2. I will also make the iteration release 2 for team 2. And make sprint 1, sprint 2, sprint 3 for team 1. So now we have considered and setting up our team just to concentrate on team 1. Now we are ready to start the project. Of course, in real case we will need to go to the security and start to manage some privilege for the team members. But I will explain this later in a separate part of the security only. Okay, I will open the web access. After I explain the settings for the project, I will start explaining the main 3 points today, which is backlog, board, and the home page. So let's start by the backlog. Work and the backlog. The backlog is a new feature introduced in TFS 11. Before this feature, To see the backlog, we have to create a query with the specific criteria and run the query. And the result is our backlog. But now it is not. So this backlog not depend on query as you may think. Actually, I would think about this at the beginning, and I remember when I started searching for the query everywhere, but I couldn't find it. So it is very important to understand how the backlog will show us our PPIs and the bugs without a query. First, you have to understand that the backlog needs 3 dimensions, which are team, iteration, and area, to show our backlog. So let's choose team 1 from here. So now we are on the backlog of team 1. We saw before that we choose a specific iteration for team 1, which is sprint 1, sprint 2, sprint 3, and we choosing specific areas, which is payment, cash, and credits. So any PPI enter for team 1 and any of that iteration and that areas, it will appear here. That's it. So a good question may be here, what if I enter a PPI for a team but for different area and iteration? Another question maybe is, what if I enter a PPI for an area but for different team and different iteration? Another one, what if I enter a PPI for iteration but for different team and area? Before we can answer all these questions, let's see an example trying to adding a PPI. Let's go to the home page. I will come here and adding a new PPI. Let's say PPI 1. I will choose release 2. As we know, release 2 is set for team 2. And I will choose another area, which is HR, that also set for team 2. If I go to the backlog, we can't see these PPIs. Let's query to find it. Just searching for this PPI, run the query without save. This is the PPI. If just I change the area and put it, in the iteration and put it in a sprint for the team 1, save. Let's open the backlog in a new tab. We will see that the PPI still not appear. If we go and start adding in an area for team 1 like cash and save, if we go here and click refresh, wow, now it's appeared. So after we create this example, so the answer for all these questions is the PPI will not appear. So the PPI or bugs must belong to team, iteration, and the area to appear in this backlog. We have to remember that teams can share iteration, areas, and the member as well. This is very important. After we understand a little bit about how the PPI appear in the backlog and what is the condition to be appeared, let's start to know how we will work with the backlog. Okay. First, we have this quick add. We can close it from here and start open from here. This for quick adding PPIs and bugs. When I just select here and just enter the cursor here, it will put a line indicating where the PPI or where the next record will be added. So I will enter PPI 2. If I choose here and start adding here, it will adding here. 3. Let's see this to be bug. So the place I want to enter my PPI or bug, I will choose the one it will be entered before, except the last one. When I choose the last one, it will enter at the end. Okay, let's see this to be at the end. So now, after I adding my PPIs and bugs and so on and so forth, so I will start prioritize my backlog. I can add this to give this a high priority by drag and drop to take a high priority in the backlog. Let's estimating the size for each PPI so we can manage our sprints. We can estimate this using the effort by using the story points. Okay, let's describe how we can use the forecast. To describe the forecast, let's add some iteration. After adding the 2 sprint, I will choose them, but remember I have to choose them for team 1. So now it should appear here. That's good. Then I will estimate using the story point for each PPI, and the story point, it is relative measurement for the size of the product backlog item. Let's say this will be 2. It reflects the complexity of the PPI. Just by putting a number. So as we can see, by using the forecast, it's telling me where to put this PPI in the sprints, how I will divide my backlog. If I change this to be 6, it will show me where is the sprint. So PPI 1 and 2 should be in sprint 3, and this should be on the sprint 4. This is please type error. So this is the forecast. It will help me to forecasting about my iterations. Okay, let's assign this adjust this to PPI 3. Let's assign this to the iteration. I can see here and assign this to sprint 2. So we have sprint 1, sprint 2, we can put it here. Also the bug, it's high priority, so I will put here in the sprint 2. When we starting planning our sprint, actually we seeing the velocity of the team, but because there is no history in this project, so there is no velocity we can see or estimate based on it. At the end of this video, I will show you some velocity from a historical data. Okay, now we finish assigning the current sprint, which is sprint 2, the needed PPIs and bugs that we want to complete in these iterations. So let's start to moving to sprint 2. But before we move to sprint 2, I want to mention very important notes. Because this backlog not depend on a query, so if we want to customize this view, we have to customize the process template itself.